We think we know the myths. The stories are too familiar, their edges worn smooth by time. Medusa. The Gorgon. The monster with snakes for hair whose gaze turned men to stone. But the oldest fragments, the texts deemed too heretical to copy, tell a different story. They speak not of a monster, but of a woman, cursed. They say her power was not in her eyes, but in her voice. A whisper that could calcify the soul, then the skin. And they say she did not die in Greece. She fled. She hid her sorrow in the one place that mirrored her petrified heart, the stone forests of Cappadocia. I found the clue in a dismissed scholar's journal. He wrote of a local legend, a valley where the wind itself sometimes freezes in mid-air, and the echoes of a woman's weeping can be heard from the rocks. He called it the Valley of Unheard Prayers. His final entry was a single, frantic sentence: "The whispers are not echoes. They are an invitation." I had to find it. The journey was a descent into silence. The birdsong died first. Then the rustle of leaves. Finally, even the wind seemed to hold its breath. The valley entrance was a narrow fissure in the rock, like a wound. The stone here was wrong. Too smooth. Too detailed. It wasn't weathered by nature. It was shaped. The air grew cold and carried a scent of dust and myrrh. And underneath it all, the faintest sound. A whisper on the very edge of hearing. It was not a word. It was a feeling. A sound of profound, endless grief. The valley was a gallery of sin. The statues were not arranged, they were gathered. Each one told a story of a moral failure, a life cut short not at its end, but at its worst moment. This was not Medusa's lair. It was her court. Her jury. She wasn't killing indiscriminately. She was judging. I moved between them, a ghost among their eternal consequences. The stone was perfect. It captured the texture of their clothing, the panic in their eyes, the sweat on their brow. They were not centuries old. Some looked recent. The whisper grew clearer here, though no more understandable. It was a mournful, sighing sound that seemed to come from the stones themselves. It tugged at the corners of the mind, bringing forward every secret shame, every petty cruelty I had ever committed. The air was thick with judgment. I felt the weight of my own life, and it was found wanting. I stumbled, my hand brushing the ground. It wasn't rock. It was a brittle, papery carpet of shed snake skins, countless numbers of them, all sizes, all ages. My heart hammered against my ribs. I was walking on the remains of her children. I looked up, truly seeing the towering pillars for the first time. They were not mere rock. They were coils. Immense, petrified serpents, their bodies woven together into columns that supported the very sky of this valley. Their great, stone heads looked down, their empty eyes fixed on the statues below. They were the silent guardians of this place. The witnesses to every judgment. And then the rustling began. It started as a vibration in the air, then became a sound. It was the sound of a million tiny scales shifting against stone. It came from everywhere. From the walls, from the ceiling, from the ground. The air itself seemed to shimmer with movement. The whisper resolved itself not into words, but into a low, sorrowful, and beautiful humming, a lament sung by a chorus of voices that were not human. The snakes were awake. And they were singing for their mother. The song led me to the heart of the valley. To a pool of water so still it was like a window into another, blacker world. And there she was. Not a monster lurking in a cave. A queen on a throne of weeping stone. Medusa. She was beautiful. A face carved from sorrow and majesty. Her skin was like the finest marble, cold and luminous. A blindfold of black silk covered her eyes, the source of the curse she never asked for. Her hair was a living, breathing entity, a crown of serpents that moved with a gentle, hypnotic rhythm, their forked tongues tasting the air, tasting my fear. And from beneath the blindfold, tears flowed. Not water, but a slow, molten stone that cracked and solidified as they traced the lines of her grief down her cheeks. She was the source of the whisper. It was her lament. A sound of such profound loneliness and regret that it could stop a heart before it turned it to stone. She was not hunting. She was weeping. And her curse was an accident that happened every time she drew breath to mourn her own existence. The serpents around her throne turned their heads toward me. The humming stopped. The only sound was the soft, wet crack of her petrifying tears hitting the stone. She knew I was there. She turned her head. The blindfolded gaze felt heavier than any look I had ever received. It saw not my face, but my soul. My every sin, my every kindness, my every fear was laid bare before her ancient sorrow. One of the serpents, pale as a moonbeam, uncoiled from her hair. It moved through the air toward me, a liquid movement both beautiful and horrifying. It stopped just inches from my face. Its eyes were not pits of evil, but deep pools of an ancient, weary intelligence. It flicked its tongue, not tasting the air, but tasting my story. It did not strike. It offered. The whisper returned, not in my ears, but in my mind. It was not a curse. It was a question. An invitation to stay. To become a part of the silence. To become a statue in her garden, a testament to my own failures, forever free of the pain of living. To keep her company in her eternal solitude. The choice was mine. To run would be to carry this terrible, beautiful knowledge forever. To stay would be to become knowledge itself, frozen in stone. The snake waited. And the only sound was the soft, patient hiss of eternity.